Alright everyone, welcome to my final Phoenix Point base class guide video, and today I'm going to be covering the Assault. After this episode is done, I'm going to think about what's required so far as things like multi-classing and the advanced classes go, because the key with Phoenix Point is you're given the ability to multi-class, and in so doing, each class is less about what it does for you just itself, but also about how you can put it together with the other components that are available to you to make some really deadly soldiers. But in order to understand how to make the best out of those soldiers, you've got to understand the basic class. So today I will talk about the assault soldiers. I've talked about heavies, I've talked about snipers. If snipers are your crutch in the early game and your heavies are disappointing until later on, the assaults strike a great middle path. Assaults are defined by medium armor, relatively high mobility. Their weapon choices are assault rifles and shotguns, and they have a number of sort of mobility enhancing and then sort of dynamic kill chaining abilities, which means the assault is going to be the absolute bedrock of your long-term development. What do I mean by that? I mean, assaults have so many good cross-classing potentials. They're up there with Berserkers in terms of how many good cross-classes they have, that you're never going to be disappointed by the number of assaults you have in your roster. They're not as weak early on as heavies, but they're also probably not as dominant early on as snipers in terms of being a crutch for your team. They're in the middle, but they will be able to contribute through the entire game. So never feel like you've recruited too many assault soldiers. They can be a good basis for your team, and with relatively affordable armor and equipment, they're some of the cheaper classes to get equipped as well. But all that said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about the basic archetype of the assault soldier. We're going to walk through their skills and how you should level them. We're going to talk about the basic weapons that are available to them, how that impacts their evolution. We're going to close out by discussing a couple of the really, really dangerous multi-class combos, and we're going to feature General Funny Guy Confusion here because he represents one of the most dangerous mutation or permutations of the assault soldier in terms of the random skills you can get and how you can take the best advantage of that. So, assault soldier. What is an assault soldier? Your assaults are your guys who are running around in medium armor. You'll see a lot of them because they're present for all of the major factions. Anu has them equipped with shotguns. The Phoenix Project started several equipped with assault rifles. Sinedri and New Jericho have them as well. So this is an archetype that you'll see an awful lot of if you interact with the factions, as well as if with your own roster. They do nothing to excess when you compare to the heavies. They are more heavily protected than the heavies. Sorry, less heavily protected than heavies, more heavily protected than snipers. Mobility, they're faster than either, unless you're counting the jump pack. So you've got this high mobility, medium protection platform that's dominated by the assault rifle or the shotgun choice. Let's talk about their skills and their weapons and what that means for them. In terms of skills, the single most defining, or one of the most defining traits of the assault soldier is this ability right here, dash, and it comes at level 2. And the fact that dash comes at level 2, much like the sniper getting quick aim early, means that this class comes online really, really early on. You can do a lot with assaults based just on the strength of dash. And for those of you who've only gotten to Phoenix Point recently, I want to say right now, at the moment, dash costs 1 action point and 3 will points to use, and you can only use it twice per turn. So you can dash twice. This essentially lets you get an extra half move worth of distance over the course of your turn relative to moving normally. When this game first came out, it didn't cost an action point to use dash, it only cost will, and there was no limit. So as long as you could feed willpower to an assault soldier, you could keep dashing. So for those of you who watched the relatively out-of-date Tier 1 weapons video, and I will redo it at one point, when I talk about how good shotguns are, in significant part, it's because this perk used to be horrifically overpowered. As it is, it's still really, really good. What dash does is allows you to take a half move, so half of your total movement range for 1 AP, fire your weapon, and then dash again. Or to really extend the distance that you can close in one turn, be it on an enemy sniper or someone who really doesn't want an assault soldier up in their face. So, dash supports the archetype of the mobile, in-your-face assault, but it's also a good flexible utility skill. Return fire, and you'll notice these are very cheap. Return fire is pretty damn good again. So, what this means is, when you are holding a direct fire projectile weapons. This can be assault rifle, a shotgun, whatever. If an enemy attacks and it's within half your perception range, which is usually relatively decent, you can do some perception boosting shenanigans with this, you will immediately take a free shot, as if you were firing an Overwatch shot at them. So if you've got a relatively accurate weapon, like a Demos assault rifle, you can make some serious work happen with return fire. The thing that stops this from being as overpowered as you might think it is that really you don't want to be getting shot at most of the time. You'll try and minimize the shots that are coming in by breaking line of sight, by using really heavy cover. Phoenix Point, more than XCOM and other games, is all about breaking line of sight if you want to dominate the tactical layer a lot of the time. So you shouldn't be taking many shots. And when you do take shots, it tends to be from outside your perception radius. Things like Tritons with sniper rifles, things like Sanhedrian snipers or assaults firing at you, things like infiltrators firing at you from stealth. The range threats that you can't mitigate against, that you can't deny shots because you don't know they're there, you can't see them. And for them, return fire doesn't help. But it's cheap, it's effective, it's a nice little bonus. And it can get an assault a lot of extra free shots that it wouldn't otherwise have. Multi-class comes in at level 4, like everyone. Tier 5 gives you ready for action. Reloading and inventory actions do not cost any action points. So this is a bit of a luxury pick. Most of the time, you're not going to be reloading a lot, but when you do, sometimes you'll be glad to have it. The reason you won't be reloading a lot is a lot of the time, if you're like me, you carry one reload of ammunition for your primary weapon on your belt. A reload from your belt is a free action, so you get one reload per mission. Using more than 2 magazines per mission would be quite unusual for most weapons. That said, it can be situationally useful, and we'll talk about the one potential use case where it can become useful if you're doing some really horrific chain killing. This can become useful. But I would get it. It's later on in the tree, and that's when I would get it, much later on in the tree. And I wouldn't invest in it until the class has other things going for it, or you have a specific use case in mind. Onslaught. Onslaught is interesting. Basically, you pay 4 will points to transfer 2 action points from your soldier to another one of your Phoenix Point soldiers, anywhere within 10 tiles. So it does have that quite tight range. This can be useful. It's not as broken as it was in its original incarnation. This is another skill that has been... well, this is not as powerful as the original sort of AP giving skills. That said, if you've got a guy who's completely on a roll and he's being supported by others from behind cover, Onslaught can have a purpose, particularly if you've got, say, one guy closing in to use shotguns and you want him to clean up a group on rapid clearance. Onslaught can feed him AP and keep him going from someone else who doesn't want to pop all those expensive will abilities. And then finally, the pièce de résistance. At level 7, you have rapid clearance, and rapid clearance is a gorgeous perk. This is a fantastic perk. This is so much of the most overpowered cross-class permutations in the game for mass clearing enemies relies on rapid clearance. When you're talking about the grenade launcher guy who can launch 10 grenades in a turn in certain circumstances, when you're talking about the shotgun or machine gunner who can clear half a map in a single turn, it is rapid clearance that ties it all together. The melee combatants who run around with ciphers and punch everyone in the face until they die, rapid clearance is the perk that makes it possible. So what is it? 30 SP, quite expensive. You spend 5 will, but it doesn't cost an action point, and it means for the rest of that turn, every time this soldier kills an enemy, you get 2 AP back. And you may notice that 2 AP is how much it takes to fire a weapon under ordinary circumstances. So, if you fire a shot which kills a target, that shot becomes free. So, if you dash your way into the middle of an opposing group, and then there are 3 or 4 aliens around you, with rapid clearance, you can go shotgun, 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 and still run for cover. But wait, there's more, because rapid clearance doesn't care if it actually costs 2 AP to use your weapon, which means all of the permutations in this game that allow you to fire a weapon or use a weapon for 1 AP or to kill multiple targets with one pull of the trigger, suddenly you have the ability to be action point positive, all thanks to rapid clearance. So, one of the best perks in the game, one that unlocks some truly agonizing combos for the Pandorans or whoever happens to be facing you, and one of the best reasons to cross-class into Assault. Dash is useful for everyone, but for a lot of those endgame combos, rapid clearance is just perfection. So, what are the weapons? And then we'll talk about how you level them up. Well, assault rifles. Let's give a basic summary again of the characteristics of the two weapons. I won't go and analyze all of them, but let's talk about what you get. At the start of the game, assault rifles are a weapons platform which gives you the ability to engage medium targets at medium range with medium efficacy. They used to not be very good. One of the ways they've been made better is they now have shred. So if you fire these 6 rounds from this Ares assault rifle, you'll take 6 armor off whatever it is you're firing at if you manage to plant all 6 rounds in the same place. And that can really add up, because remember, you're also getting benefit from the volley of 6 that you originally fire. It's the same as having a damage bonus of 1 on your first round, 2 on your next round, 3 on your next round, etc. If you talk about the New Jericho one, it's actually got a shred of 2, so you're going to take 8 points of armor off using this nice little railgun in order to wound your enemy. Or you have a long-range engagement platform, and yes, 32 and 6 is a long-range engagement platform in the form of the Demos. So, assault rifles, these are your weapons that will give you the ability to engage human targets and early game aliens at medium range with a decent amount of efficacy. They're not mega lethal, but they're multi-purpose, they're flexible, and by adjusting them to have that shred and giving them a few other tweaks, the developers have given assault rifles a place in the early to mid game. The other option you have for assaults is shotguns. Shotguns in Phoenix Point are exceptionally close-range weapons with huge amounts of firepower. This iconoclast here is capable of putting out 350 damage, but only at an effective range of 8. Compare that and contrast, this Demos is capable of putting out 180 damage, so you're getting almost twice as much raw damage potential. Only realized, A, if you're close enough to hit with all the pellets, and B, you can find a spot on the opposing target which has no armor. So the traditional method, I suppose, of applying shotguns with assaults is to use dash to close in, not just close, but pretty much point blank to opponents. So the entire aiming circle is occupied with their body. Find a low armor limb, jam the barrel of the shotgun until it is almost physically touching the location, and then pull the trigger. Because remember, this isn't an XCOM game. There's not a percentage chance to hit. Well, sorry, this is not a new style XCOM game with a percentage chance to hit. This is a physics model bullet. So if the gun is sufficiently close to the target and you just fill the ring with the opposing body, you cannot miss. And that's how the shotgun is applied in this game. The shotgun becomes kind of the de facto late game weapon, if only because, well, sorry, let's talk about the longevity of assault rifles. Assault rifles get a little bit of a kick in the mid game if you unlock the New Jericho armor piercing assault rifle at tier 2. That's a tier 2 assault rifle option, which gives you the ability to deal with the very heavily armored Pandorans that you start seeing to appear in the middle game. But the only tier 3 option, there's no tier 3 assault rifle, the tier 3 option is a tier 3 shotgun. And in some ways, it's got certain traits that make it similar to the assault rifle. I mean, its effective range is longer than the other shotguns, to be sure. The shard gun gives you 25 damage with a burst of 15, but also 15 piercing, which means you no longer have to find the weakest point on an enemy target. This thing's perfectly fine dealing with 10 or even 20 armored enemy components. Against something with 20 armor, you're doing 20 damage times burst 15. So it's 300 damage. That's not bad for firing against a target whose armor would otherwise have pretty much messed up your shotgun at the start of the game. 20 armor would have taken this down to 15, put this down to 150 damage. Very disappointing. Plus, the shard gun gives you unlimited ammo at superior effective range. So when you're talking about chain killing, this is the default option, the shard gun. So, the assault by its base, how would you level up? How would you level it up? And would you adjust its equipment particularly? Well, The equipment for the Assault is pretty decent if you're saving money just as it comes out straight out of the box. The only thing you might want to consider are things that increase its mobility even more, because Assaults tend to thrive on the basis of mobility. There's an alternative option where you build Assaults that have really high perception values and are instead designed to give you a base of fire and leverage return of fire. I personally get better use, or I find it easier to use, speedy dash assaults that are designed to be really lethal really quickly. Speed and willpower are at very much a premium for assaults because they don't really survive based on their hit points, which you get from strength, and their equipment is usually not particularly heavy. What they need is speed, because speed is multiplied because you're also how far you go for dash is based on how long your speed is. And your willpower is, well, it's how many times you can dash and how effectively you can employ rapid clearance. So that's what your willpower count is for. Of these, speed is probably the most effective, followed by willpower, followed by strength in terms of leveling perspectives. How then do you multi-class or leverage their permutations to get the absolute most out of them? Let's talk about permutations first. I can give infinite examples. What do you do with a biochemist assault? What do you do with a strongman assault? Let's go over those really quickly, but remember there's lots of permutations here. The biochemist assault thrives on being someone who deploys something like a shard gun or a multi-shot assault rifle or a shotgun to apply a lot of viral damage without you needing to drag around a priest carrying a viral rifle. Biochemist, for those of you who don't know, is a perk, a random perk. All soldiers have random perks as well, which means every bullet has one virus, which means you apply a debuff to the enemy which causes them to lose willpower on their turn equal to the amount of virus you apply. So if you shoot an enemy twice with this shard gun, you'll apply 30 virus points. That means on their turn, they lose 30 will, and there are very few things in the game that can survive negative 30 will without panicking. And the next turn, they'll lose 29 will and 28. Now, they won't panic every turn because you're immune to panic for one turn after you do panic, but it's a significant debuff. And when you're talking about capturing big, scary Pandorans, making them panic with a biochemist assault or another biochemist class, one of the best ways to do it. And assaults are good for it because their speed lets you get them into a firing position where they can actually apply the weapon. The strongman assault is the basis. So strongman assault is one of the permutations that gives you one of the most powerful class combinations in the game. Strongman, for example, is a perk that gives you the ability to use heavy weapons, like GC does. GC's carrying this here machine gun from New Jericho with plus 20% accuracy while also giving you plus 2 strength and less perception. The negative perception basically ruins your return fire, but you ain't here to return fire. The reason that the strongman assault is so dangerous is because if you cross-class this thing with Berserker, here is what you can then do. First, you activate rapid clearance. Secondly, you activate Adrenaline Rush, which is a Berserker perk which reduces the firing cost of any equipped weapon to 1. So, at that point, if you've dashed into the middle of a group of enemies, because you remember you can't use willpower points after using Adrenaline Rush, you dash into a group of enemies, you pop those abilities, you can then fire this machine gun, which does like a huge amount of damage. That's 350, that's more than that actually. It's 420 damage, which each bullet doing a shred. So superbly, supremely damaging, and you can fire it for 1 AP. So if every 2 shots on average kills an opponent, you're coming out even. More likely, 1 shot's going to kill an opponent, and you can use the spare action point to move to the next opponent, murder them, move to the next opponent, murder them, move to the next opponent, murder them. You can keep this chain going, and you can finish the chain like plus 3 willpower, plus 3 action points, and point at the nearest giant Pandoran like a Scylla or something, and fire off 3 bursts again. And you might be like, well, I'm going to run out of ammo. Well, if you picked ready for action, and you got a backpack full of ammo, no, you're not. You're not going to run out. Or, if you're doing the thing using a shard gun, yes, that's only normally 2 AP, but you're still bringing it down to 1. That's got infinite ammo anyway, so you never need to reload. So that's what's classic. If you see people in comments talking about the Terminator build is an Assault Berserker cross-class that happens to have heavy weapon proficiency, or at least that's how I've heard it expressed. So what are some other cross-class combos that could be really, really good for Assaults, and what are some other roles you can have them play? The Assault cross-classes really well with just about everything. It's one of those, it and Berserker are one of those just general good to have cross classes. The reason is just about anything can benefit from the additional mobility Dash has, and a lot of things can get really ugly if you add rapid clearance. But let's go through some of them. Let's go through all of them in order and what does and doesn't work. And remember, I'll make multi-classing its own videos. This is more of a summary. The Assault Technician cross class doesn't get a huge amount. Like it's not a tremendous benefit. So it's a relatively low synergy. There are some benefits in terms of PDWs benefiting from mobility and only costing 1 AP, so you can do some sort of kill chaining, but you generally choose a shard gun over even a tier 2 personal defense weapon. At least that's my personal experience. So Technician Assault cross-class, not great. Also, Technicians tend to spend a lot of their AP healing or deploying turrets, neither of which activate things like rapid clearance. So not particularly great. The Priest cross-class is another one that doesn't do particularly well. Priest is going to be spending a lot of its time pouring all of its willpower abilities into things that don't necessarily kill enemies, but buff your team or debuff your enemies, which means they're not going to be getting rapid clearance benefits, and they don't have the spare willpower to use to run dash and rapid clearance, so low synergy. Assault Infiltrator, now we're starting to get a little bit better. Infiltrator can allow the Assault to get all sorts of sneaky, attacking from concealment benefits, which can get pretty ugly pretty quickly if you're moving really rapidly but have massive levels of stealth. Add an implant to make all weapons silent, and you can do there can be some judicious application of violence in an Assault Infiltrator cross-class, and they make unparalleled scouts due to their additional mobility. Assaults move bloody quickly. Infiltrators are stealthy, therefore the thing is a pretty damn good scout. Assault Heavy. Assault Heavy is a structure that is usually used in order to support a heavy that is a grenade slinger. That is the Assault Heavy, in my view, and there are so many other ways to build this. This is just a summary. The most common use of an Assault Heavy cross-class would be a grenade slinger with rapid clearance, or to exploit return fire in some way, or to use dash to offset the heavy's limited mobility. There is some capacity to cheese by going heavy to give you melee weapon proficiency, getting a 1 AP melee torso, and then going to town with rapid clearance. You can do something similar using Berserker, but in some ways the heavy is better at it. So you can do a melee cross-class build there. I would usually make that build about leveraging rapid clearance and grenade launchers. Assault Berserker. So Assault Berserker it's interesting. It comes into its own as a really, really powerful class for ones that have the Terminator ability, so the Strongman perk, or for ones that are really good at taking that kill chain to the absolute maximum by exploiting Adrenaline Rush. So for that, you're probably going to want the head that gives you daze immunity, as much mobility as you can, and a really lethal primary weapon, be that either a two-handed melee weapon with the 1 melee AP cost Cyber Torso, if you want to get the kill chain going, or just exploiting the shard gun to its maximum extent. So that's your Fanatic, hypermobile, adrenaline, 16 coffees in the morning, your heart's going to give out any moment build. That's the must go faster build, is the Berserker Assault. Assault Snipers tend to be more sedate. Assault Sniper is about covering off the weaknesses of the sniper and also giving it a little bit of extra map control potential. So Dash gets snipers up to speed. There's two ways of thinking about it. You can think about it as a sniper with assaults, or you can think of assault with sniper. If you think about it as a sniper with assault, you're giving a sniper a little bit of extra mobility in the form of dash, and And if you're willing to spend the willpower, you can chain quite a decent number of kills from distance if you combine rapid clearance and quick aim. You're just going to burn through your willpower pretty damn quickly. But if you're there to make a statement on one turn, say 6 targets reveal themselves, if you have a scorpion, you can go pop, 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 pop with nary an issue. Beyond that, that's the base of the synergy if you're thinking about it that way. The other thing that gives you a great benefit is if you have lots and lots and lots of perception on a sniper and a sniper rifle, you can return fire a lot of a reasonable amount of the map. You can dominate open areas. If enemies are firing at you and you're pretty confident that they're not going to be able to hit you or that your guys are really well protected, a sniper can get multiple return fire shots off in a turn if cross-classed with assault. So that option is there. What do I normally cross-class my assaults with? So anyone with strongman gets Berserker. In fact, a lot of them get Berserker. I like teams having an infiltrator assault if I can. That's a build that I like in order to give me the intelligence that supports my grenade slingers and my long range engagement troop. An assault with the ability to sneak attack, to fire from cover, silence all his weapons, identify enemy targets while being super mobile, and then kill chain. It's pretty freaking gross. If you have a priest in your team, and you should in the late game to instill frenzy to add even more mobility, those guys just rock it. I have occasionally used Berserker Assault cross classes as like psychotic killing machines, but mostly for the Terminator build. And I've also once used the heavy assault cross class with the melee torso to do some really ugly melee-based kill chaining. You can do it. In that case, I'd recommend adding the super mobility leg mutation, probably, and the Synedrian cyber torso for maximum hilarity. But those are all late game sort of uses based on your cross classes. A lot of the game you won't have cross-classed because you'll be investing your points, as you should, in getting these basic statistics right. This assault is at level 6, and you can see I've mostly been focused on getting the basics of the class right. And once I get rapid clearance, then I start having a lot more potential to gain things through multi-classing. So what are the other uses throughout the game that your assaults generally field? Well, so your general medium-range combatant, they're your room clearers because they actually have the combination of a close range weapon and mobility. They clear an awful lot of chaff with their shotguns. They're also, when you're relying on melee capture tech, so before you have a bunch of range stuff or you're on a speeder, they're your best neuralizer carriers because with dash, they have the ability to, for example, dash in, stun twice, and dash again. So they're good for that sort of thing. They're your base of mobility when you're looting. That is, they've got relatively light equipment and reasonable mobility, so they're the base of your squad that can get the medium range crates. I usually send the heavy to get the crate that's furthest away, the snipers get the ones that are closest, and the assaults, berserkers, and other classes get the task of fighting into the middle of the map and getting everything in between. A lot of people think of them as your grenade carriers. I generally find grenades in Phoenix Point pretty disappointing. This is a huge contrast to the new style XCOM games where your grenades are like defining. Every mission you will throw all of your grenades normally. They blow cover and whatnot. Cover is less of a problem in Phoenix Point because you can always dash around it or shoot through it depending on what tools you have available to you. But they're definitely your capture monkeys. They're good medkit chassis, particularly the ones with the healing abilities, because again, you want the medkit to be where it needs to be. And if everyone's got a medkit, that's fine. But if you need to get a medkit somewhere in a hurry, the most mobile member of your team is the one who's going to be able to save you if they're carrying it. And the ability for an assault to basically do a full value move and then heal using a medkit can be pretty invaluable. So those are your roles. Medium range combatant, they're the anchor of the team. How many would I've mentioned before how many of these I would use in a team. Let's just say you're doing a team of 6 in the early, let's do an early game team and a late game team. Early game team, where you have no more than one heavy, I would then have maybe 2 snipers, which leaves you with 3 assaults. If you want to, you can go 3 snipers and 2 assaults, but not more than 1 heavy. The point is, I would favor the 1, 2, 3 build at the start of the game, 3 assaults, 2 snipers, 1 heavy. Because those assaults are going to be the gift that keeps on giving right out into the later game. What about later on when you're dealing with the 8-person teams later in the game? Well, now you've got 2 heavies, maybe even 3 on your team. You've got a priest, so that's maybe 4. You've probably got maybe 2 or 3 soldiers that have assault either as their primary or as their cross class in an 8-person team. You don't expand this greatly, but in saying that, if you had a late game team that had 6 assaults of various kinds and cross class, one with as your infiltrator scout, a couple of others as your psychotic frenzy killers that have no chill and definitely need to down a few scotches after going out in the open because they've traumatized themselves and everyone in view. Support them with 1 priest for additional mobility and you can make it work. The assault is never going to unbalance your team by its presence. You might miss the absence of grenade support, you might miss the precision of a sniper, but there's very few things that you can't at least try to deal with using an assault. You can deal with things at long ranges, medium ranges, not very well, but if you've got a bunch of these, you can engage targets at a reasonable distance. You can kill an awful lot of things by applying shard gun to temple and pulling trigger. So you can't really go wrong hiring them. So let's talk about hiring them. Who do you hire them from? And I know I have people who watch these videos who play at a number of different difficulty levels. And at the lower difficulty levels, you also need to consider the equipment that they come with when you're choosing to hire them. To answer that question, I think it's pretty definitive that all in all, the Synedrian Assault is your best overall deal. I haven't done like a tier 1 armor video specifically, but the Phlegathon is pretty decent. It's a net plus 2 mobility, it's 18 to 20 armor. I will say that the Anu Assault armor is actually pretty damn good. It gives you plus 2, plus 1, which is not bad at all. The reason I would say the Synedrian ones are probably the best to recruit overall is because that gives you the Demos, the laser assault rifle, which is probably the best tier 1 assault primary weapon just because of its flexibility. That said, you can't really go wrong if you hire a couple of Anu ones because that gives you 3 mobility dudes who are cheaper because you pay a discounted cost for the equipment, but you still pay for it, and they come with the Harrower, which is the best tier 1 shotgun. It's better than the Phoenix Project shotgun. So if you want a shotgunner, you can safely recruit from Anu. The independent assaults are pretty trash, but you'll have them. The armor only gives a net plus 1 mobility, which is kind of shitty. The one thing the Synedrian armor does have over the others, by the way, is the accuracy bonus. There's 5% accuracy bonus, I think, in here. And New Jericho gives you nothing. Same with Phoenix Project. So the only accuracy bonus for an assault is on the Synedrian armor. So the Synedrian armor gives you reasonable mobility, and it's really geared towards those sort of mid-range engagement assaults. The Anu armor is the psychotic rampage killer. The New Jericho armor rounds it out. What you're getting with the New Jericho armor is a little bit more protection. You're not getting particularly much mobility. You're plus 1 for the whole set, which I don't think is worth it in the end. It's better than the Phoenix Project, which gives you plus 1 mobility for less protection. But all in all, the New Jericho Assault, I think, is probably the weak link of the foreign recruitable bunch. The gun is best suited for dealing with armored targets. It shreds 8 protection per turn. But the Demos is much more accurate and reliable, and the Harrower is much more overall lethal. And by the time in the game that enemies have so much armor that you're going to want just that little bit extra armor shredding from the New Jericho gun, you should be having other options coming on board in order to solve the problem. So I would recruit my assaults from Synedrian or from the disciples of Anu. And trust me, I'm not an Anu guy, so it hurts me to say that. But the Anu the Anu Assault armor and default setup is actually pretty good. Now, at higher difficulty levels, if you're playing the second top difficulty level, you don't get the gun, you just get the armor. So all you need to think about is the armor. Here, the decision becomes even clearer. New Jericho's like, I'm not sure if it becomes that much clearer. The New Jericho's weakness is their gun, which is no longer a concern, but the armor is still not great compared to the other two, so it's these guys. Overall, I like mobility in my assaults, so I'm probably going to favor the cheaper Anu option, who comes with the mobility enhancing armor, than the Sanhedrian armor, which is a little bit more protective. No, exactly as protective, lower mobility, but gives a little bit of an accuracy bonus. If money was no object, I'd still consider the Sanhedrian armor. Also, the Sanhedrian armor is absolutely stylized, like it's styling on everyone. The Anu armor, not so much. So that's the Assault class. You'll see there's barely a squad that I have deployed in this game that doesn't have at least one Assault in the lineup. I think this one is the only one, and that's because it's got a Berserker basically doing the job. This team I've got rolling out with no heavies but 3 Assaults, and it's doing great work. Alpha 2, this is an extended squad, so we've got 1, 2, 3 Assaults plus 2. Oh no, not that. They add to another squad. That up here. Delta's running around, so you can see they're a pretty common feature. If nothing else, they're affordable and they'll never let you down. They'll never give up on you, and they have so much flexibility out into the middle of the game. So I'm a fan. They're not going to. They're not the most flashy class in the very early parts of the game, but they really do blossom later on with rapid clearance and some truly egregious cross-classing combos. Your assaults are going to be the class that get the chain kills more than just about any other class combo in the game. So I hope that was useful. A nice overview of the assault class. I will come back to talking about cross-classing and the advanced classes, the priests, the technicians, the berserkers, and the infiltrators separately. But now we've done an overview of the heavy, the sniper, and the assault, and hopefully you've got enough information to know where to recruit them, how to use them, how to equip them, how many to use, and then how to deploy them and get the most out of them later into the game. With those tools at your disposal, I think you've got what you need to build a great team. Hope it was useful. Talk again soon. Cheers.